you got for us in terms of
We got
bans?
the bans.
Oh,
There's the jackpot ban.
The respect finally for that
Jackpot ban.
The respect finally for that monster list. Oh, Akela wants nothing to do with that. That thing is a beast. If it be, no problem. Just, you know, it's just profit kind of thing.
All right, here we go, though. We are here. We are starting the final series of Gwent Open number 2, Season 3. Akela on blue with his Inspired Zeal Commando deck versus BigKukuRUzina on red with Imprisonment Ball.
Yes, sir, ladies and gentlemen. Open number 2, Season 3. Can you believe it's like Season 3, Open number 2? Gwent has been through some rough patches. I mean, it's there's no way, shape, or form to sort of just toss that aside. But man, is it great to see this game still getting, you know, getting new content, new players, you know, high-level players, old and new, coming through, creating such pretty, you know, intriguing lists every time. And with a patch around the corner, that's going to be another shakeup as well. So here we go. First cards are going to hit the board real soon. We have a Mauler, which is a nice setup, if necessary, if you want to go ahead and, you know, perhaps follow it up with a Roche, possibly. But we got no Roche. We have no Commando, even. Yeah, what's the deal here? There's no way to even get him. And this is going to come back to that original question, Shinmiri. You know, Pincer Maneuver or Inspired Zeal?
There is the blue coin curse scroll that is going to be the saving grace here to get something for Akela, whether that's Roche Merciless, whether that's Amphibious Assault, or if that's just a straight up Commando. It's probably going to be one of those three, but Akela's going to wait to see how BigKuku responds to his opening play before deciding exactly which one of those three options he's going to take.
I like this play right here. You're going to lock up the Mauler because the Mauler is usually a precursor to a Roche play, right? You those early game cards that have sort of 4 points of body. The Mauler comes through, your Roche comes in with the Death Wish that goes ahead and, you know, triggers the Death Blow that triggers, and you get your own fresh new Commando. So
he's going to take the Oniromancy actually here.
That's a great card to pick up for sure. I mean, if you're going to pick up a card, you want to pick up one that's going to wheel back. Having the Oniromancy just floating around the deck is going to be no help. Just picking that up and playing it the old-fashioned way is pretty decent as well.
Oniromancy into Roche Merciless, deciding not to get the second Echo card, the Amphibious Assault, and instead wants the tempo, wants the extra points from Roche Merciless this time around. We're going to use double leader charge to give Zeal to the Roche as well as the Commando. He wants to have two of these Commandos on the board with order ability ready, so you can't just go ahead and lock one of them. But BigKuku does have those imprisonment leader charges. If he wants to, he actually could invest both to answer both of these right now to prevent more Commandos from coming out in this round.
Inspired Zeal here does not have the likes of Prince Anseus. It doesn't have Selkirk, so those Inspired Zeal charges are really just hunting for Commandos and making sure that that is a safe play to do. A lot of these Inspired Zeal charges are going to have those kinds of options, so you're a little less inclined to just double tap like that, once on the Roche and once on the Commando to get your Commandos out of the deck. But without any other real targets for it, I mean, what else are you going to be Inspired Zealing other than the Commandos? I mean, a Mauler, like, you're never really going to do that. It's the only thing that with an order, frankly, that you really want to make that work with. So, you know, if you're out there thinking that, well, you know, using two Commando or two leader charges early on like that might be expensive, that's what they're there for. They're there for, you know, establishment of the Commandos here, so you can go ahead and get your cloning facilities up, you know, and get the army built up so that later on you could use that final one to just go ahead and fill the board.
Yeah, and there was the DMT, the Dead Man's Tongue by BigKuku. I didn't get to quite catch what the order of his deck was, but Kuku does now have the crucial information. We saw him in the last series skillfully using that Dead Man's Tongue to check what's on top of his tech, and then knowing that he could Joachim in round 1 into his second Blightmaker. That was a really nice play that he made in the last series. Wonder if he can follow up with something like that this time around as well. No Joachim in hand at the moment, but that information ever so crucial. Huge. This is the biggest Van Morlehem Hunter that I have ever seen. 17 points. This is just asking to get Curse of Corruption.
Now, you could Curse of Corruption at any point, right? So you don't necessarily need to do it right now. Not to mention, you're going to likely be needing a Curse of Corruption perhaps down the line, given the fact that there's a Joaquin in here, and in a bigger round 3, perhaps in the Masquerade Ball round, where things just kind of grow out of control. Maybe you want to hang on to that. Given the fact that your Heat Wave is likely going to be hunting that that Masquerade Ball, that you're gonna might need that Curse of Corruption for something bigger when it matters later on. Now, that said, yeah, I feel like a lot of players on ladder are just going to insta-tap that because it's just way too juicy. But what does a 33-point lead do above what you have already, which is a 16-point lead? You know, is a 33-point lead bigger than a 16-point lead, especially when you have all these options? You have another 8-point play with your Blue Stripe Scout. Now, obviously 33 is you know, more than twice as much as 16. I'm not disputing the simple math here, but what's the point of going that much over the top and expending a gold card in that case?
And look at this. You know, despite BigKukuRUzina passing, Akela is just going to go 2, maybe 3 cards down here and copy as many commandos as possible. Gets the full test, plays the full test after the pass, so that there is no chance that the full test gets locked or answered. Against Nilfgaard, full test is almost never copying more than 1 commando. But by doing this and going to the long round 3, he is able to copy 3 commandos with that full test. And now there is an army of commandos waiting in the graveyard and in the deck for Akela. But we saw him take this strategy in day 1 as well, with the commandos. Going to a long round 3 may not be the best chance this deck has. We'll have to find out if these commandos can carry him.
Well, there's no way that, I mean, I've seen braver players bleed down 2 cards. I don't think I've seen players brave enough to bleed down 3 cards. So we're gonna take the pass. Akela is not the hero we need right now, but you know, just gonna hedge his bets and just go into round 3 with a decent hand right now. I mean, you have the Oneiromancy, you have Curse of Corruption, Heat Wave, a lock. You've got some removal. You got the Pavetta that you need, so you're feeling pretty decent, I suppose. The issue might be, I feel like you kind of have to get those commandos out as fast as possible so that your rows don't get clogged. Because
I can give you
that could be problematic.
I can give you an official count right now.
The official Shinmiri count? The official Shinmiri commando count.
Exactly. There are 4 commandos in the graveyard and then 5 commandos in the deck. So total of 9 commandos available to Akela. And he still has the likes of Erland of Larvik and Amphibious Assault, as well as reinforcements and megascopes if he wants even more commandos. But at that point, you know, copying commandos with reinforcements or megascopes, only a 4-point play. Probably just cares about, you know, slamming those 9 commandos down and trying to play uninteractive as much as possible for the first half of the round.
I can confirm that 5 + 4 is 9 according to my calculator, so that is just that is a confirmed fact from Shinmiri. The commando count now, though it is split up in 2, will eventually be 9. That Pavetta is going to feel nice. Now there could be, no, you're always going to play the Pavetta to go ahead and just reload and just draw them all in one foul swoop. But you do also have the siege ladder there if you need to move one out of the way to call back everyone else. So in reality, if you can just flat out populate your rows as fat as possible, and then cards like Alzur's Thunder, Heat Wave, the Curse of Corruption, these are not putting bodies on your side of the board, so you don't necessarily need to worry about that kind of real estate, so it could actually play decently. If you can fill up the board, you know, cards like your opponent's Joaquin, ×2 potentially with Coup de Grace, the Roderick, etc. It's going to be difficult for them to find the space for these cards. Same thing with Usurper. So it's possible that could be, you know, a thought process for Akela here, where it's just like, you know what, I'm just going to fill up the board as much as possible and make it uncomfortable. We saw this in previous matchups where Wong ID played with a full board, denying, in the Nilfgaard Mirror, denying his opponent the opportunity to go ahead and play some certain cards. So I wonder if that's even possible here, because you are going to fully populate one row. If you got 9 commandos, that's the entire back or front row completely juiced.
Yeah, and then you have Pavetta, Margarita, that's 2. Siege Ladders 3, Erlin's 4, Peller's 5, plus the spies that Nilfgaard's going to put on your side of the board. That will easily get to the 18 total slots, but Nilfgaard at the same time might remove some of your units with poison. So there might be a real estate issue here on Akela's side of the board before long.
But it might be a real estate issue that's more a BigKukuRUzina problem, potentially, than it is an Akela problem. We'll see how it goes. Again, that siege ladder is going to be clutch to make some space to call in more commandos if possible. But again, if you're making space on a row, that's a window for something like Usurper to get the full value it needs. And yeah, I mean, this is going to be a very intriguing undertaking here for both players, because board space factoring in is not as uncommon anymore, especially with the way that Nilfgaard plays and the amount of units that Northern Realms can generate as well with this.
Oh, BigKukuRUzina going for the Alchemist. Could he maybe get one of those commandos over to the side? Yesterday, we saw the Alchemist snipe the Roche Merciless. This time, not possible, but could still get some value. If this is a commando, it is not. It is just a squirrel.
Oh boy, poor squirrel. Well, the squirrel's not really going to do a whole lot, unfortunately, at this point.
If played early from Joachim, that squirrel could banish a commando before Pavetta is played. But I think I think Akela might be scared of that. Yeah, he's immediately hiding, protecting all those commandos in his graveyard and sending them to the deck because.
Oh yes. Commandos are hiding their nuts, because that was one hungry squirrel. But you're absolutely right. That swap over there could have actually just gone ahead and scrubbed out one of those commandos out of the graveyard.
I think I was actually wrong about the possibility of Alchemist hitting a commando, because all those commandos were at the bottom of Akela's deck. I don't think any of them, because he hadn't played Pavetta yet, none of them could have been at the top of his deck. So there was no chance of losing a commando, but, you know, BigKukuRUzina still needing that proactive play from the Alchemist, maybe trying to find like an Amphibious Assault or an Erland, who knows.
All right, so here's the first little spot here. We're just going to go ahead and lock the Pavetta, which is an intriguing endeavor here, but the quick lightning there makes short work of the boosted up Thirsty Dame. And this is where this is going to become you know, very beneficial to Akela here, because you're just going to be removing stuff, and Nilfgaard's proactivity are fairly limited. If we're looking at the cards here, you do have the Blightmaker. That's fantastic. That's one play for sure. But everything else looks quite suspect. The Joaquin, you know, that's an option for you as well. But, you know, God forbid, it's gonna pick up a squirrel. So you're not exactly too happy about that. But it's gonna pick up a squirrel every time unless you use the Yen's Invocation properly. But you're not Cantarelling, I don't think. I don't suspect there's a Vincent here, obviously, because you're going to lose the poison ability from the Fangs that are come through. Same thing with the Usurper. Usurper is going to drop poison on a 3-point unit. That's not the value you want to see necessarily.
Okay, so it is going to be Blightmaker into Mage Assassin for BigKuku, just buying himself a turn, waiting to see what Akela does. But Akela does still have a few uninteractive plays remaining in his hand.
Now, the thing here is that I think you got to play your Erland, so that you're still a turn away from your commandos. So you're calling it in, you know. Rohan coming in.
There's the Heat Wave onto the ball, and just deleting that scenario, still remaining uninteractive with only 1 power on the board. Erland, though, you don't need to rush the commandos. Like, the reason to rush the commandos is you don't want Kuku to start putting spies on both of your rows and then you running out of space. But if you rush the Erland's not going to have immunity, and so you're not going to necessarily be able to get... I'm looking at the deck, there's only 2 units left, two units that are not commandos left in Akela's deck. So maybe you don't care about the immunity on the Erland that much. Maybe you do actually want to play that relatively early so that you don't get commandos blocked. You have the Siege Ladder as well, so there are answers. Akela has the flexibility to answer some of this row space issues should BigKukuRUzina try to make some real estate problems for him.
Akela, again, just kind of playing very dodgy here. Just keeping that one point, that one strength Pavetta with the lock on her and saying, this is all you got to play with, my friend. So what you got? And again, looking at the cards here, I mean, you can kind of look at, like, I'm not quite sure what's in the graveyard for Akela that might be worthwhile scooping up with the Cantarella. I mean, do you pick up the full test, perhaps? It's an engine that can buff something. I don't think at this point you're too concerned about putting a unit at the bottom of your deck. Imagine if full test put the card on top and you put the full test next to the Mage Assassin.
Oh, yeah, that would be cheeky.
I wonder, that would be, it's kind of like a really nasty Dun Banner style, Dun Nilfgaard way, right? But all right, well, we're going to go ahead and pick that up. Again, no bronze cards on the board to go ahead and clone, so it's going to have to be the Emissary.
Yeah, just the Emissary as more of a proactive play, probably boosting the 1 point. Yep, 1 point Alchemist, keeping things short. And yes, as you see, like the rows start filling up a little bit. Commandos will get stuck in the deck, but temporarily, because this siege ladder can move one of these commandos to the open row and get the rest.
That Pellar still in hand as well can be used to potentially purify the Joaquin that's played to just eliminate the coup de grace value. You're gonna force your opponent to use their lock to go ahead and damage the Joaquin and lose a little bit of value off the coup de grace onto the Joaquin. So purifying that can be potentially a big deal here. Nothing really. You're not locking any real engines. I mean, the assimilate on the Brothans can get out of hand. You're probably going to see maybe another 2 or 3 points off of it. So the Margarita here locking that. There's really no targets of option here. But again, Akela is kind of playing very slow and steady here. But the cards that he's hanging on to are basically, I mean, I don't want to say it's a one-trick pony here, but you're going to boost your commandos, you're going to call in your commandos, and that's all she wrote. You're going to hope that your Curse of Corruption can just scrub out a big pocket of points to get you through here. But I mean, 9 commandos it's a lot of freaking commandos.
9 commandos, they're all going to be 5 points each thanks to the Erland. So that's 45 points plus an amphibious assault for 4 points. That's 49, and the leader charge 51 points in the commandos plus leader charge play. And this is what Cantarella is going to take. The Roche Merciless for 10 points of his own. Not too shabby. No commandos for BigKukuRUzina this time in his graveyard, unlike yesterday that we saw. So no easy way for him to copy these commandos himself, to play Nilfgaard commandos, as we like to say.
Nilfgaard commandos, which is basically undefeated, right? I mean, that Nilfgaard commando list went... just kind of dummied their opponent. They played it better than Northern Realms did. But it's the different story, because last time we saw that Nilfgaard was generating commandos from the get-go. In round 1, they were putting in the work right away, and it paid off in droves down the line. So off of something like the location into Cantarella, into Pavetta, into let's get nasty, right? Like, it was just such a wicked play to see, such a great sequence to witness. And in this case, like you mentioned, it looks so dire here for Akela, because you're 32 points in the hole, but like you mentioned, after that Erland, those commandos feeling a little more confident. They're coming in at 5 apiece, and if you go pick them up in good order, it's gonna be a nice feeling.
This is a coup de grace on the Erland, which is interesting. There's not that many. Okay, so there's 6 units left in the Nilfgaard deck. Well, so Erland was going to play for 10 here, so that's not that bad either. You don't really want to coup... I guess he doesn't really want to coup Joachim, because maybe he knows that like Mage Assassin is going to be on top after the Squirrel. So no incentive to coup the Joachim, and just takes the 10 points from the Erland instead, and doesn't want to go for the YOLO coup on Cantarella. Most likely you're not going to get anything that great.
Well, and also there's a risk. If you want to coup the Joaquin, you got to drop the Joaquin first, obviously, which means that Akela might just go for start to drop units on the board and pick up space. There's the Curse of Corruption finally going to go ahead and get rid of the Usurper now.
Well, that's a good news for Kuku because holding this this Joachim has prevented a couple of extra points on the Curse of Corruption. Joachim into a squirrel is still 12 points.
So why is Akela holding on to the commandos here, Shinmiri? Just out of curiosity, because like you mentioned, if you're suspecting that your opponent might be holding on to a Joaquin, I mean, using the coup de grace on the Erland might sort of, you know, telegraph a little bit that maybe Big K doesn't have the Joaquin, so you can go ahead and freewheel that Curse of Corruption because you don't think you're gonna get a bigger option.
This is my guess, is that he wants to see that invocation come out of Kuku's hand because, look, he wants to play Amphibious Assault into one of these commandos for extra points, which puts the commando at 9. Then the leader ability puts the commando at 11. This would be a really, really good invocation for Kuku if he still had it. 11 points of invocation, plus then he can click the commando that he generated with Roche Merciless for an extra 4 points. So that would have been 15-point invocation, and instead he got like a 6 from the Margarita, maybe an extra 2 because now he Joachim's a Margarita instead of a squirrel. So like that's a big difference and a lot of points that Akela saved by being patient with his Oneiromancy into Amphibious Assault into Commando, and wow.
And when you're staring down a 28-point deficit here and your last 2 cards or 2 bronzes like that, you think that the game is pretty much over, except that, I mean, Gondor calls for aid, man, and those commandos are going to come firing out in short order. And again, just testament to how players play with open deck lists. There's no need to protect that commando because a lot of those answers are finally gone, unless...
There is this lock answer that Kuku stole, but Akela knows this, right? He has the Peller prepared in his hand. And the whole reason for waiting was probably to keep a shorter unit on the board and not getting the extra Inspired Zeal points onto this commando. But look at this. Kuku, this is just one outplay after the other. BigKukuRUzina holds the Margarita. The Margarita order can be paired with the Vincent to take out the tallest unit and dodge this Peller Purify. Wow, this is some nice play. Both players in the open decklist situation, knowing what sort of answers you can possibly have. And the BigKukuRUzina here getting a 9-point removal from the Vincent. It is gonna be 12-point Vincent, clicking the Erland as well. 22-point lead. How many commandos are left?
There's a couple commandos left. There's a few left, but hold on a second. You do have the crew ability on the siege ladder, so you're going to get a boost. You're going to move it to the front. You do have the boost with the zeal as well. So commandos are coming out.
It's just barely not enough. Oh so my close. God.
That was very close. Again, if we're going to use that mythical... so far are playing magnificently, but that's game 1. We're going straight to game 2 here. Big KK, Corny Boy is up 1-0 against Akela. Akela on red here, gonna have the Reckless Flurry, and I know that we've talked about this before, Shinmiri. Reckless Flurry likes to take that red coin and just run with it.
Oh yeah, and Akela making the predictable Q with Reckless Flurry on red, and BigKukuRUzina challenging it with the Pincer Maneuver Siege list. All right, and both players considering their mulligans here. Akela has that Avaloq Sage into Portal if he wants the tempo threat. He has Quen for a Bear Witcher eventually, and he has a good, healthy amount of bombs. BigKukuRUzina, on the other hand, Siege already in hand, Foltest already in hand, missing the likes of Amphibious Assault, but there's the Dun Banner, so doesn't necessarily need the Amphibious Assault if he wants to save his leader for later.
Yeah, Big KK's plays here are kind of, I don't want to say mapped out, but typically what you're doing here is you might drop in the Radavid's Royal Guard, you might go ahead and boost the Dun Banner to protect it a little bit, bring out its brother, and you follow up typically with, you know, a Foltest with that Crystal Skull as a nice pretty hat on top of it with the Veil and such. But the problem here is that Akela's playing a very control-heavy option, so as soon as that Radavid's Royal Guard comes out, D-Bomb. As soon as, you know, perhaps you're playing the Carrick Marine, D-Bomb.
Mhm.
You're going to go follow up with perhaps, I don't think that there's the Banard student in hand. No, not anymore. But we're going to see these are just going to get really just, kicked off the table as soon as they're presented. I mean, Akela's just kind of thinking, all right, do I want to use the left D-bomb or do I want to use the right D-bomb?
And the big issue here for Akela is not having access to the heat wave because without the heat wave, this full test, if it gets the 4 boost from the crystal skull to 10 strength, is going to be quite tricky to answer. You don't have like a greatsword in the graveyard already, so for your Hjalmar to do 10 damage, you're not on blue coin. You don't have that stratagem, the new discard stratagem that can put a greatsword in the graveyard to set up your Hjalmar in round 1. So with no immediate answer to this full test, things might get a little bit tricky for Akela.
Yeah, it's happened to me before where you're just wondering, like, the Mask of Uroboros is popped and you feel comfortable because you've got your full test up there at 10. And, you see what they're like, why are they discarding that? Silly goose. And then all of a sudden, Hjalmar comes in and just absolutely just bitch slaps you back to reality. It's like, why was that a thing? But here it is. I guess this is a different story, given the fact that, like you said, full test dies to Heatwave either way, whether it's 10, 6, 10,000, it doesn't matter. It's dying to Heatwave. So, I think he's just playing in the situation of like, I don't think you have another card other than Heatwave that can get it cleanly in one shot, given that your graveyard's pretty cleaned out. It's completely bare. So I think maybe even using a full test free and clear for one turn, maybe Akela comes back with a bomb to threaten it, and then you just come in with the Carrick Marine, right, to just reboost it up.
Yeah, and there's the Maxi getting a good look at the order of Akela's deck. We see Portal second to last at the bottom, so that's probably what Avalok Sage will go for if he didn't shuffle. Heatwave still about 7 cards away, as well as Gerd and Junod near the bottom as well. So maybe not the most ideal deck order for Akela, potentially shuffled there. But BigKukuRUzina now, this would be your full test turn. If you play it at 6, it is kind of vulnerable to something like a leader charge plus a Junod. Or even
Right.
a leader charge plus a bomb. If Akela's lucky enough to double tap that full test, the 4 damage bomb could kill it as well.
Problem is if you low roll there, let's say you swing twice, or you swing once and you only hit it once. You swing a second time and you don't hit it at all. You're kind of pot committed here, right? To use it again. So again, this comes back to the point where it's like, all right, full test is my round 1 card anyways with the done banners. So I'm gonna, it dies to a heat wave again. Like I said, whether it's 6 or 6,000, heat waves is just gonna go ahead, point, click, delete. But in this case, it looks like he's just gonna give it a shot, and like we said, threaten it. And if that, I wonder if he follows this up with the leader charges. No,
if you were gonna follow it up. If you were going to follow it up with a leader charge, you would probably leader charge first to see how many times you hit it. So this line means that Akela is probably just giving up this round, because for no doubt, BigKukuRUzina is going to marine this back up to a healthy 6 points. But the difference now, I guess, it's still difficult to answer at 6 points, but the difference now is the Madoc is in the range row instead of the melee row. So the Madoc with the Cataclysm could also help soften up this full test, but it's already got a lot of value. This full test is already, I think, like 14 points, copying Commando, or not Commando, but Dun Banner in this list twice with Devotion.
I was going to say, do you double down by putting the Carrick Marine in the back row and just kind of giving an extra target for that Madoc to maybe potentially miss the full test? Or do you keep it in the front row, whereas now if Madoc clicks and another bomb comes out, you're always going to find value. But
it's not going to matter.
It's so hard to deal with that full test next to a done banner like that, especially if you do not have that heat wave. And if you don't have the Greatsword in the graveyard with that Hjalmar to follow up with, that is just, it's a death sentence in round 1, Shinmiri. It's really hard to recover from that. And we saw that he basically, tried to check to see if he had an answer there. It's like, all right, I'm going to do 2 damage to it. If you don't have a boost, I can continue into this round. But the immediate follow-up by the Carrick Marine was basically lights out for that round for Akela. He pulls the shoot, says, screw you, I'm seeing you next round. I have no response to that full test. And I guess if there's a silver lining, it means that his heat wave can find the siege, I suppose, if he scoops it up.
That's true. And Akela did shuffle his deck with the Maxi, and it was pretty effective. Draws Portal Junod as well as Gerd, all 3 golds were in the bottom 5 of his deck before the Maxi shuffle. So Maxi coming in clutch here for Akela.
Yeah, she's an MVP in this case. I mean, you're always shuffling likely one of those adepts to the bottom of the deck. Don't want to see those. That's what the portal's for. And look at that. I mean, like, you just picked up some major heat there. Portal's going to be huge. We're going to see if BigKukuRUzina wants to go ahead and play into this round.
At least threaten.
Yeah.
At least threaten the Banard student a bit with the free AA. This is the first instance of Amphibious Assault. So, you know, if Akela decides to use leader charges to answer this, or God forbid, a heat wave to answer this, then BigKukuRUzina is going to have like traded up very well in round 2. But if for some reason Akela decides not to answer this, then maybe that's BigKukuRUzina's sign to push a little bit more into this round to try to get some value from this Banard student.
I think that's not a bad plan, given the fact that, I mean, if that Banard student gets a free ride here, well, how do you deal with it? Because you haven't seen a greatsword yet, right? And that is usually a good sign. If you're haven't seen the greatsword that sets up the graveyard or grows or does whatnot, like, that's a good way to just continue to push forward here. The Banard student is going to get some more, you know, turn the page a few more times on that patience, get his licks in and continue to get stronger. And, I mean, the stronger it gets, you still have that casting contest too, man. And the fact that there's just boosted units on the board, that 9 in that beautiful green font, means that Junod is, again, just a 6-point bully that can't really do much.
Yeah, and this is what I like to call the soft push in round 2, or even the Schrodinger's push, because when you're above 7 cards in round 2, you have that safety net, that backup plan to just pass at 7 cards and not risk losing a card advantage for round 3. So your opponent doesn't really know, are you actually trying to push me, or are you just trying to get me to waste my resources and my answers, like Svalbard Totem, like Portal, like my leader charges. So Akela is going to slow it down here a little bit and trade removal for a removal.
Yeah, and Maddock just misbehaving, hitting the back row, taking a backseat to the action, whereas the Banard student, front row center. And casting contest again in conjunction with that Banard student. What a nice little 1-2 combo for relatively cheap amount of provisions for the two for what they can possibly do together. Again, if you have that casting contest on a Banard student that just has basically been riding the bus for how many turns now and just hasn't really been a factor. Once that thing pops off, I mean, I would suspect, okay, well, there's the pass, but you're gonna get an extra turn of patience with that pass, and Bear Witcher's going to be played, which actually, you know, charges up your Banard student again, because it's going to come back, and there you go. Is that Banard student? I think it's at 4?
It's at 4 now, correct.
Yeah.
It is at 4. And look what that Schrodinger's push bought BigKukuRUzina. He spent first AA, which is like spending literally nothing, and then traded and got the Svalbard Totem, which is a super annoying card for BigKukuRUzina to deal with, because Svalbard Totem in round 3 would just sit the Fanatics there for a while and eat up pings from bombardment and random pings, from the bombardment, from the scenarios, and potentially get like 14 points of value.
Akela found the delete wave. That is a massive sigh of relief, I think. I mean, how many games have we witnessed where Heat Wave would have just solved so many problems, right? And there it is. That's a card that is... Maxi really came in clutch here. Picked up a lot of cards, and I mean, yeah, you committed the totem. Akela did commit the totem, but Akela still has that portal where necessary. You got location, you got Avalok, as well as Junod, Yalmar, but no great swords. Set that up.
All right, no great swords, but he did draw every single gold. Akela drawing decently well, all golds in hand, with Bear Witcher in the deck for Geralt Quen and a Megascope for Avalok Sage. On the other hand, Iluxa hasn't drawn as well, but he does have that pincer maneuver leader ability to get Shawnee, the main gold he's missing, as well as potentially a Bloody Baron or a Carrack Marine, or even some sort of removal like Boiling Oil or Bombardment.
Where does that... I mean, that's the thing, right? I mean, I wonder where Bloody Baron is actually going to fit in here, because I don't think that there's going to be much boosting going on Akela's side. You might, maybe in some weird circumstance, try to reset your own unit, but I feel like Bombardment, if 2 or 3 of these or let's say you know all of them survive. You're going to be, if you have 4 or 5 different artillery on the board, I feel like bombardment is the better option. The problem is that playing bombardment against Skellige in these cases against this deck can be problematic. Now you do have the totem completely expunged; those 2 fanatics are gone. But between the adepts and the fanatics, bombardment can be a liability. It can kind of just fall flat, right? So it is a dangerous matchup in that regard. So it's going to be a question of what do you actually pick up with that second maneuver. Shani's obviously, you know, prime suspect number 1 when you're going to use the pincer maneuver to pick up, but it's going to be really up in the air in terms of what you pick up as the second option.
Yeah, I think what KukuRUzina will like to do is hold that second option until the very end and just give him some flexibility, especially if he wants to deter Akela from playing something like a 12-point Bear Witcher Mentor from the location. Location in this long round 3, you can end up having a ton of damage units, so that location could represent a lot of points from Bear Witcher Mentor, but Baron would put a stop to that. And also, talking about Shani is a card that has cooldown 7, so you do maybe want to consider, if you're KukuRUzina, to grab that Shani early and start that cooldown counter going on the board, so that it is actually representing a threat. And you also have that winch potentially to not reset the cooldown, but speed up the cooldown by an extra 3 turns if Akela doesn't answer her soon enough.
Or state as it is right now, it's pretty, you know, it's still in the setup phases as we still now see Adalia come through. We're going to make another one of those reinforced ballistas, jab it in the back row. I like that play. I mean, there's no need necessarily to go ahead and fire and ping on anything right now. So the shield is going to be more valuable. Maybe it'll soak up perhaps one of those pings as we see it go there. It does crack the shield. And I wonder if there's going to be a follow-up here.
Yeah, this is maybe a dancing star on the reinforced trebuchet, also hitting down the battering ram to a 1. Very weak. Oh, but Maddock does not behave and goes front row instead. And this was why KukuRUzina was stacking all of his units on the back row. It is worse for something like Gerd, but if you put everything on the same row, you get a 50% chance that Maddock doesn't hit anything. And so the second leader charge does come out of Akela, and to finish off that battering ram. And now the reinforced ballista is at 4 points, potentially dying to a bomb, but that bomb does not exist anymore because all the 4 damage bombs of Akela's have already been played.
Vanguard Student still in the hand for BigKukuRUzina, something that, you know, needs to eventually think about to keep that going online. There's still also 2 ballistas, another set of engines that need to get established. The question is, you know, and there's so many different cards that get value over time, you know, you want to have to evaluate what's the best way to do it, what's most vulnerable, what's least vulnerable, let's say. Hubert's sitting at 7 there. We're going to go ahead and use the first wheel of pincer maneuver pickup. Shani, good timing on that Shin again with the 7-point counter there. I wonder what he's going to throw back.
He throws back the student, as I think is a good choice, because like you said, there's just too many cards to play early in his hand. So the student having to go into the front row, instead of playing a student from hand, just resurrects the other student from the graveyard. It's already ticking his patience up to 5 damage. That's a pretty big threat now. Now Akela is triple forked here. He has to answer the student, he has to answer the reinforced ballista, as well as Shani eventually.
So that heat wave never found the siege, and I think that the reason for that is because Akela's like, I can just do this the old-fashioned way. I can just control out all of your units, that your siege engines that basically are improving that final chapter, that bombardment chapter. There's nothing I necessarily need to worry about here. Let's see if Maddock can redeem his name. Maddock went to the wrong row, but maybe this Cataclysm is going to go ahead and scrub out that student. That student is now at 5, and that is something that needs to be addressed, given the fact that casting contest is only going to make that card double tap. And I think that if that card can get up to a significant portion where it can maybe get rid of one of those fish flappers, I mean, it's got to be taken care of. But Junod is just going to go ahead and get rid of it. It has to be, because Junod's not really going to find much more value than that, frankly, given the fact that the patience is just going to continue to go.
Yeah, Junod is going to kill the student. Akela not willing to take his risk on Maddock hitting the student twice. The odds are not that great. But now Shawnee survives and the reinforced ballista survives, but they're both at a precarious 3 power. 3 power is dangerous because Bear Witchers, not this turn, but next turn for Akela, once he gets to the Adrenaline 4 threshold, he can start doing 3 damage with his Bear Witchers. 1 from location, 1 from Gwen.
Yeah, he's not that far off from it, right? So he's going to eventually get there.
And we see the Hubert counter at 4.
Second wheel now of Pinch Remover does go ahead and pick up that Baron. Wonder what he tosses away here.
Casting contest.
No, the casting contest.
Oh, the casting contest is still there.
Winch is gone, but he's just gonna go ahead and rescue that Shawnee. And kind of just say, all right, well, you're gonna have to deal with this at some point. All your pings are gone. Your Bear Witcher's is gonna take a few turns to get there, but the Heat Wave is still in hand. That's likely gonna be a pretty decent target for it. And unless trying to think of what's in the graveyard that can go ahead and be tossed with that Yalmar to kill it. Something's got to be in there.
There's a Bear Witcher in there.
Beauty.
That's the highest, 8 strength. But I'm confused as why BigKukuRUzina kept the casting contest over the Winch. Because Winch has Shawnee and potentially Foltest Pride as targets, whereas casting contest right now has no targets. There's not, there's no...
Is there a Marine that you can pick up?
Marine on the board? You can get a Marine. You can get one with Amphibious Assault.
Yeah.
You can get one with Amphibious Assault, I guess, but that could also potentially be a Heatwave target for Akela. Akela holding this Heatwave and not Heatwaving the Siege makes me think that he does want a Heatwave whatever comes out of Amphibious Assault, because that is going to be quite tall.
Might be more value, frankly. Even the fact that he's been very adept at just kind of shaving out all of those siege engines as they've appeared, but there's still 2 left. I mean, BigKukuRUzina's has been sitting on these 2 ballistas in hand. That's a lot of work that those could have done. I'm wondering what he's kind of hanging on to and waiting for. Maybe he's just looking for more bodies on the board to absorb the bombardment, given the fact that there's armor there. You do have... Okay,
yeah, there's so much armor.
There's also going to be some Doom Sauce on there. No worries.
There we go. Putting it to 9 is really smart because 9 is out of reach for the Hjalmar, and this will have to take Heatwave to answer this reinforced ballista now if Akela wants to deal with it, and he does. So Heatwave comes down, and slowly but surely, Akela is running out of time to answer this Shawnee. And Akela doesn't know necessarily that there's no winch anymore in BigKukuRUzina's hand. Like, if there was a winch, this would be the last turn, the last chance that Akela would have to answer the Shawnee before she resurrects something else like a Marine from the graveyard. So BigKukuRUzina might have thrown the winch away, thinking that I don't actually need to have it in hand. I just need the threat of having it in hand, and maybe the Shawnee takes removal like in the form of Hjalmar and something else gets to stick. This is all mind games and bluffs now between 2 of the top players of the game right now. In this game number 2, BigKukuRUzina is going to just play it for Zeal. Oh, it hits so much armor!
That is always the risk there. I mean, those adepts are so good in this game, given the fact that they just shoot out at 7 and just start stacking armor. These big hats that just rain down. That bombardment means nothing, just glancing blows right off of that armor. That bombardment was negligible. Did all of them hit the armor? I think all of them did.
I think one ping hit something that wasn't armored. I think like Junod or maybe the student got hit, but
possibly. But that is just that is just the worst case scenario over here. But again, in this matchup, that's what you kind of will. In fact, I mean, this is probably a better case scenario than it could have been. We've seen it in the past where there have been totems with those those fanatics, right? Now here comes Hjalmar, probably gonna go say Merry Christmas to Shawnee.
There it is, yes. So Hjalmar removing the Shawnee 1 turn before a potential winch could reset her cooldown, and now that is pretty much all the tall removal or the good removal that's left in Akela's deck. All of it is gone. He has 3 damage left in the form of Bear Witchers at this point, and this is gonna be, this is still too early to call here with 3 and 4 cards left in the round. Both players have some good stuff left over. There's a lot starting to develop a lot of Bloodthirst on the board. Now there's 6 Bloodthirst on the board. Or I guess Bloodthirst isn't the right word. There's 6 damage units on the board right now. So we're looking at something along the lines of a 10-point mentor at the moment. Baron already been played by BigKukuRUzina, so no threat of resetting that mentor anymore.
I think that BigKukuRUzina is kind of seeing the writing on the wall and is starting to work at getting rid of them, but it might have been a little too late. Maybe that ping would have been better used, perhaps, to get rid of one of the students in the front row. See what if he's opting, rather, in this case, to pick up a Bear Witcher. He's taking the Bear Witcher over the mentor. I believe that might be less points, is it not?
It's okay, because if the Bear Witcher survives, you can heal it, and then it ends up being 10 points anyways, and this damage is threatening to... I don't know if it would be worth it to even kill this Ballista at this point, but I think it's okay. It's unlikely to die, but who knows? We'll see. This casting contest, though, still no target, still waiting for that Carrack Marine to be pulled from the Amphibious Assault at some point. And this Foltest Pride, no crew. Oh, there is a crew pocket. Bloody Baron is a soldier, so he could play it now with the crew pocket, get cooldown 2 on it, but there's nothing to hit. You can get 3 points from hitting the very far right student, but Akela has done a good job of just maneuvering and positioning all of his artifacts within the units so that the adjacency targets aren't great for Foltest Pride. So props to Akela for that. Here comes Avlok Sage for that Megascope, right?
Yeah, that's it. He's going to drop it on the Bear Witcher for 8 free points, just like that. And the issue that we found here in this matchup is the fact that Foltest Pride has been has had a really tough time of navigating this gauntlet of, unit, armor, artifact, armor, artifact, armor, armor. It's just like, it's not finding the same kind of value that it may want to just feel comfortable, as there's the Amphibious Assault picking up that Carrack Marine. Carrack Marine's going to deposit some love on one of these, but the casting contest is going to fix that up again. It is still pretty close. Let's just be completely fair, because if that Carrack Marine survives, which it will, that casting contest is a 9-point card. And there's still 4 points that Big K is still hanging on to those 4 points. That Carrack Marine is just kind of just keeping those points in his pocket. It ain't Christmas yet. It's not ready to dish it out.
And the Foltest Pride is also getting its cooldown back, so it will be able to shoot again, despite the board being a little bit less than optimal. But Akela's also got a huge play. He's got Gwent into Bear Witcher, along with the Megascope, still getting him another 8 points from copying the Bear Witcher in the first place. This is game number 2. It's coming down to the wire here between Akela and BigKukuRUzina. And I think, one of the things is this Pincer Maneuver Siege version is actually a lot worse against Reckless Flurry than when compared to the Inspired Zeal duelers, because if you had cards like Onseus or Selkirk, you could usually duel these Bear Witcher Adepts, get rid of their body and kill them before they accumulate all this armor, and then the armor would be this is just
nail biter. Just
enough. My god, another like double or triple 8s or something like that. But I think, the little voice in my head says we are in, and we are starting game number 3 between Akela and BigKukuRUzina. This could be match point. This could be the final game of the tournament, ladies and gentlemen.
I will say this: Wolverine is most dangerous when his back's against the wall, and that seems to be the case here for Akela, as he's now at 2-0 here. It is Gwent Open Season 3. Gwent Open number 2, Commandos versus the Freak Show. It is Syndicate Jackpot. How'd you get through with that? Big KK is kind of counting his blessings. The fact that he was able to just let that deck through, that's amazing. He's got 3 kicks at the can here to convert against Akela. Akela just trying to survive, and Shinmuri, he is bringing that Northern Realms list on blue, as we suspected.
Yes, exactly, and he's got a very good hand with it, too. He's got 1 Commando, both Scouts, both Megascopes, and a Neuromancy to boot. So a lot of different ways to copy Commando here in round 1, and that's got to be what you love to see as Akela. All
right, 1 card at a time, 1 turn at a time, 1 round at a time. Akela's just kind of got to make sure that, you don't overthink, but you don't want to just go ahead and think that it's autopilot, because a lot of these decks typically want to open the same way. You might think you have, hey, this is the perfect hand. I'm going to do this, 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 this. And I don't care what my opponent's doing because I've got my first 3 or 4 turns set up, and that's how it's going to be. But you got to take your time. And we've discussed this in the past, the fact that, yeah, it seems like your turn that you have right now may be super straightforward. Let's say, it comes back and it's Akela's turn, and yeah, we're just going to go ahead and play a scout. Well, why not take that time to think about what the future is going to be, what your future turns when it gets a little bit murkier, when it gets a little less straightforward? How am I going to play these follow-up turns? So take the time as it's given to you. You don't necessarily want to rush the turns. There's no rush at all, but Professor's going to come through, and that's a big one because that shuts down the commando that has the order still unused. So creating the commando still an option for Akela, obviously, Shinmiri, because you could just go ahead and clone that one, but calling them in, bringing in the reinforcements might be a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, so with the only commando that has order ability killed by this professor, now Akela is going to have to rely on something like these megascopes to spawn new commandos that have their orders active. But the megascope also it spawns it at the end of Akela's turn. So BigKukuRUzina is going to have like the first shot, the first chance to interact with these commandos before they are on the board. You can't even, I don't think you can even inspire Zeal, the commandos that spawn from the megascopes, because they spawn at the end of your turn after you already passed the turn back to your opponent.
That's it. It's an end of turn effect, right? The countdown comes through, the commando will show up, but it's just left out there to dry, right? Left to its own devices, given BigKukuRUzina a chance to interact with it. Now, options to actually interact with it are fairly limited. I mean, how do you kill it? You can, I guess, freak show it, but that's really something. Is that something that you want to give up at this point? Because you've already given up Professor to kill one of them. Do you want to use the freak show to clean up the rest of the mess? I mean,
I think you definitely would. I think you would as BigKukuRUzina, because Akela's list isn't really like an engine list. There's not engines to shut down with the freak show later. Your only real removal value is to shut down these commandos in round 1. So I don't think BigKukuRUzina would really hesitate very much to use freak show in this manner if needed. Akela, again, now in what did he do? So BigKukuRUzina played Peaches and Akela thundered it. So Akela has kind of taken a pause on copying commandos for a turn for the time being to answer an engine, and now BigKukuRUzina back. The ball is back in his court.
Well, he's the option. You're gonna go ahead, jam the tax collector. Let's say you can maybe throw a poison down if you want to, perhaps on the 6-point commando. You can also go ahead and actually you could throw down with one thunder gone. You're not as afraid of a second thunder. I believe Akela plays a second thunder, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. Yeah, 2 Alzur's Thunder, so there's less chance of the second one being there, which means that if you do want to play that Freak Show, you can slam the Freak Show down and just go ahead and scrub out that commando in the back row. Free and clear. You empty the bank, mind you, but that's not a big deal. You're again, putting the onus on Akela to say, all right, buddy, go find another commando. And if you do that, that means that you're not killing my Freak Show. So you got to do one of the two. How do you want to do this, buddy?
Oh.
Well, I am back with the winner. Unfortunately, we had a disconnect at the end, but BigKukuRUzina, you are the winner, going 3-0 in the final. How are you feeling right now, man?
Поздравляем с победой, 3-0 в финале. Ну, как себя чувствуешь сейчас?
Грустно. Жаль, что таким образом все закончилось. Хотелось выиграть в каком-то эмоциональном матче. Но как и Акеле, не повезло. Ноутбук не удержал.
Well, unfortunately, I feel sad. It's a shame that it's ended that way. I wanted to win in a national match, but, well, unfortunately, the laptop didn't make it. So it is what it is.
Yeah, unfortunately, we had some technical difficulties. Even the match, when we were trying to start it, took a lot of time to connect. And after we connected, unfortunately, it ended in a disconnect. But yes, the rules for Gwent Masters here are pretty much the same for everybody. We used to have the same situation with Poisound back in the day. But yeah, it is what it is, but it's a victory that you achieved because you made it to the finals with your hard work, your preparation, Any shout outs that you would want to give to people who help you prepared or to anyone watching? Now's the time.
Это все равно твоя победа, получается, твоя подготовка, твоя тяжелая работа, поэтому все как бы не так грустно на самом деле. Если вот есть какие-нибудь приветы, которые ты хочешь передать, тогда сейчас время для этого.
Ну, в первую очередь, благодарю всех из команды Team Legacy за поддержку. Но в особенности Телебота и Барт, они мне помогали больше всего в подготовке. А так я еще бы поблагодарил моего друга Клоза01, знаменитый гвинтер в российском комьюнити. И еще я бы поблагодарил за поддержку стримера одного, TechXX1. Я знаю, что он меня очень любит и рад за меня.
Okay, so first of all, I'd like to thank my team, Team Legacy, and especially Tailbot and Bart, because they helped a lot with the preparation and building the lineup. Apart from that, I would like to thank Clauso01, who is also a very known player in the Russian community, and one of the streamers. His name is TechXX1. He also likes me a lot, and he was supporting me all the time before the tournament.
Awesome. I think you always have to mention Tech XX1 because yes, he's well known and everybody talks about it. But yeah, congratulations to you, BigKukuRUzina. Hesser, thank you for translating and for being with us throughout the weekend. Awesome work to both of you. And yeah, congratulations once again. Oh, the dog's there. That's important.
Yeah.
Yes. Look at it in all its glory. Thank you, BigKukuRUzina. You're making everybody in chat happy, plus me too. Thank you.